welcome to Suzanne's studio, and I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host. Tonight, if I could describe my guest, Jean Hollands, in one word, it would be she is a dynamo. Let me tell you a bit about Jean Hollands. Jean is a family and marriage therapist. She's been doing that for 27 years. Jean is the author of 5 books. And guess what? She has been on the Oprah show twice, the Today Show, and many other shows. So to have her on our show is such a treat. Jean.
Isn't it a treat?
Jean, I'm
Such
so
a
glad
treat
you're
for me
here.
too.
No, really. You are so famous.
Thank you.
And you started a long time ago.
A long time ago.
How did you get started?
Well, I got a degree in marriage and family counseling, and I married a man. And all of a sudden, I realized after a few years that he's just not the guy I married. You know, he's crankier and he's more serious and he's more on my case. And so I wrote a book about him, The Engineer Personality, in 1984. And Silicon Valley was just growing then. And so the world was very interested in the world of Silicon Valley and what engineers are like in marriages and on the job. So I got a lot of attention over it.
How about your other husbands? Were they engineers?
Oh, yes. I've
no
had a couple.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Really?
I had a couple. I understand engineers. I love them. They're marvelous human beings.
But they're so opposite of you.
They're the opposite of a very emotional person who is not going to be as rational under duress now. And of course, there's all kinds of combinations. You know, there are engineering women who are like the engineering men, and there are other actresses who are just like engineers. So it's not exactly cold science.
Well, 2 major questions. One, you have had over 10,000 clients, and you were a corporate therapist.
Yes.
What was that like?
Well, what happened is that book that got so much attention, wives would throw their husbands at me and say, "Fix him, will you?" And I would, and he'd say, "Well, why don't you come fix my vice presidents? We're having a workshop or team building. Come on down and see what you can do." And then I said, "Okay, we're not going to do marriage counseling anymore. We're doing corporate psychology." And that's what we did for the next 20 years. It's the same, really. It's 2 people or 6 people having issues. And so it's really the same situation. And we were lucky because companies really wanted to have their people coached.
Of course. And coaching in those days, they didn't call it coaching, did they?
Didn't start out calling it. We called it coaching from the beginning.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
You
we were a
did.
little bit ahead of things.
The other thing, before we get to our subject, is what was it like to be on the Oprah show, Jean?
Well, it was fun. It was lovely. She was very gracious to me, but I learned that a big celebrity like that doesn't have a lot of time for a little small talk in between like you do. She is very businesslike, and unless you're on camera, you're not going to get much out of her. But she was very good to me. At one point, on the second time around, I had a couple, and they were just fighting on the set, on the screen. And I finally said, "Will you shut up?" And Oprah Winfrey said to me, "Jean, do you say shut up to your clients?" And I said, I do. I said, "But my mother doesn't like to hear that, so I don't say shut up around my mother." And she laughed over that. So she was fun.
But she really is an amazing person.
I think so. I admire her a great deal. She's done a
Okay.
lot.
So what we are going to talk about tonight is, I can't wait. What are the differences between men and women?
Besides anatomically, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
all right. You want to hear some?
I do, of course.
Well, the one that comes to mind, this is a silly one, but it happens a lot. Men, when they go to a restaurant or to the movies, like to sit in the same chair. They don't want to move chairs. Women will get in the movies and someone's tall in front and they'll say, "Honey, let's move down there. I like those chairs better, Or in a restaurant, "I've got air conditioning on me. I want to move." And hubbies don't really like that. Men don't like that necessarily. They will stay put. And I think it's
Why do you think so? Why are they that
They're
way?
wired. They're wired to be more focused and staying settled in, and they're not as multitasking, of course, as we are.
I know. It's
Now
like,
there are exceptions.
yeah,
I want
yeah.
to make. I don't want people to say, "Well, you think all men do this and all women do that." They don't. There are women who act like men and vice versa. So,
Of course.
but in general, I'm talking in general now. The more men do such and such than women do.
Do you think that one of the objections that I have to men is they don't seem to speak up, whereas a woman will? I mean, if some annoying situation happens, they just sit there.
Yeah, they play by the rules more
That's
than women
it.
do.
Why
They're-
do they do that?
Oh, they don't want to look stupid in case they're asking for the wrong rule, or they're asking for they're saying something. They don't want to be stupid. They want to be on the ball and always say the right thing and do the right thing. So they don't want to admit any frailties. The other thing, you ask me what men hate. Women are more social, just more social. We were in Hong Kong a few years ago, and I looked out and I saw a big parking lot filled with women sitting cross-legged across and with tablecloths down there, and they were sitting talking to each other, 6 or 7 women to a table. And we're going, what are these women doing here? It was like a Friday afternoon. And this our guide said they're here from another country and they work here. They've left their families, they've worked here, and they're maids and they do housework and so on, but they get one afternoon a week off and they all gather here, and they're from all these different countries, and these women are blabbling and having the best old time, and they're just having a wonderful visit together. Now, I could never see 500 men of any nationality sitting on a parking lot with a tablecloth, having lunch, doing all that kind of talking. Women thrive on social conditions like that, whereas men would not do that. Not even a foursome in a table at a country club do you see men as elaborate in the way that they chat.
So these really aren't generalizations. These are facts.
There's
really
quite a research done
Yeah.
on the difference between men and women.
Do you think it's because, men just don't let out their emotions? Do you think it's the way they've been brought up from childhood?
It can be. I think that nature nurture. I think that we're different by nature, different, but I think by nurture we're also different. If the man had a father who he admired a great deal, it's easier then to be the kind of man he wants to be because he's had an instruction book, father. But if he didn't admire his father, if his father wasn't good to him, his father was absent, and he has no instruction book about how to be the kind of man he wants to be, then he makes a lot of mistakes as a man and as a father. A woman has the same thing. If she doesn't appreciate her mother, didn't see her mother as a guiding post for her, she's also going to be without an instruction book. And she'll try to be the perfect woman. And when those two get together, oh heavens, because they have a lot of trouble because both of them are trying to be what they've never been taught to be or never had a model for it.
Do you think, this is just thinking of this, how could, okay, I'm going to make a question. How can people stay married for 50 years? I would think that would be so boring.
Well, they get patient. They get patient with each other, and they learn to live with, and they'll hopefully a lot of them learn to diversify, so they get some of their needs met in other ways. Mm-hmm. Men get some of their needs met in fishing or at the golf club or other ways that they can feel good about themselves, and women can feel the same. They can have their clubs or their work. They can do anything to get another picture of themselves besides the mate's picture of them.
Well,
marriages over 50 and 60 years are a wonderful thing. They really do appreciate each other. They have a history that's gone on forever, so they really do understand what they're going through. Whereas if you're not in a long marriage, you don't have that history. I have a girlfriend I've known for 75 years. So my friend and I have this history together that's incredibly important to me. She's been there at every death and every birth and every marriage that we've ever had.
That's interesting because do you think that men have intimate relationships? I don't mean sexual
Yeah.
with other men.
No, I don't.
I don't
Unfortunately,
either.
I did a survey one time at a church camp, and we asked we asked men and women to write down your 5 best friends and where they came from. There were about 300 people there, and the women could come up with 2 or 3 friends usually, and most of the men could come up with one, some of them 2, and many of them none. But those who did come up with a best friend always said the best friend was from high school or grammar school. A couple of them from college, but none of them from their work life now, none of them from what they were doing in their world. And they'd say, well, my wife has a lot of friends, but I don't. I'm working and busy and have the kids and it's hard to make a friend when you're 40 years old for a man.
Exactly. But the other interesting thing is a woman can meet another woman, say standing in line waiting, at the bathroom. And in 5 minutes, you find out their life story.
That's right.
And men who play, I know a couple of men that have played tennis together for over 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
One was getting a divorce, and he never even could tell
That's right.
this
It
other
happens.
guy
It
who was
happens.
so.
Now you're an extrovert, and so am I. So we are a little bit more unusual in that we are a little bit easy. We have more conversations more quickly. There are some women who, in fact, the world is made up of 75% of the people are introverts. So there
I
are going to
didn't
be
know
these
that.
women who are also a little bit shy at introducing themselves to another woman or anyone else.
And also, I've known some men that say that they have a much better time talking more, intimately with another woman, that they're women friends, not lady friends like
Yeah,
that,
not
but
girlfriends, yeah.
that they are so much more comfortable talking to a woman than most of their men friends. Why
Again,
is that?
well, they're careful. They're competitive. They don't want to say anything that another man might disagree with or another man might not understand. But with women, they feel that they're a little bit more um, easygoing and willing to hear anything at all, and they're not going to judge them. So they're always worried about being judged.
Do
Whereas
you,
women don't seem to judge men as much.
Jean, do you think that we women are men pleasers
Oh yeah, oh yeah, we are.
more than men are wannabe women pleasers? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, about men, men want to get the job done. They want to problem solve. And so if they can please you by problem solving for you, they will. Whereas women will want to be more engaged and they want you to say, there, honey. Oh, I'm so sorry about this. Jeepers, well. They want more from the event than men want to give them. And so there's always that drama of, oh, she wants more of that kind of talk again? Have to do that again? We talked about that last night, didn't we? Or we talked about that 4 years ago. Wasn't that enough?
What are some other differences?
Oh, let's see. I think that men have a hormone, it's testosterone, that when it gets weakened, they become sullen and quiet and tired. When a woman's hormone becomes weakened, she loses more of it. She doesn't become tired. She becomes angry and anxious. So now we've got both of them with lowered hormones, and he wants to lie down and be quiet and not talk, and she wants to just get on his case and get him to stand up and let's talk about it, or at least let's go out dancing or something, because she has energy that she wants to give off. Now, men in an early relationship, when he wants to get the woman, his testosterone is working, so he's inspired, and so he'll do whatever it takes to get her. And because that's problem solving, once he's gotten her, it's a little bit harder than to get him to be as exuberant as he was in the first place. So he then becomes more quiet and she becomes more anxious for why aren't you the way you were when we were first going together. The other thing about a marriage is a woman thinks that she's going to change that man after she gets married. That's a bad mustache, but I don't tell him about it now. I'll tell him later, and later I'll teach him how to dress right and how to talk to my mother. So she thinks she's going to change the man. The man thinks that she's never going to change. And then so they have this agendas that clash because he's hoping she'll never change, and sure enough, she does.
So what's going to happen with that relationship?
Well, hopefully they will mend. Hopefully they'll learn to listen to each other. I have an exercise I have them do, couples, and I have this working for lots of different situations, but I call it the every other day paradise. I had a couple, they were going on a cruise, they were going on a safari. They'd been married 50 years, and I said, oh, have a wonderful time. And they said, oh no, we're going to have a terrible time. We don't do vacations well. I go, what do you mean? No, we've never had a good vacation yet, they said. So I said, wait a minute, let's have you do this. I want one of you to take responsibility for every other day. And so on odd days, wife is going to make all the arbitrary decisions. Like, shall we take a taxi or shall we take the shuttle? Shall we have breakfast at the airport or shall we have breakfast here before we go? Wife will make all those decisions. On odd days, you, Charlie, you can make all those decisions. And that means that each one of you has to be responsible for one day of your day, responsible that you're going to get what you need. Now, it won't happen all the time. And as a matter of fact, they went on their vacation, they came back, and they told me they had the best vacation ever. Because for 11 of the 22 days, one of them felt responsible for the day. Instead of at the mercy of someone who won't do what I want him to do.
Yeah. What a good idea that is.
I teach that to engineering men and at work and women and the marketing people because they're different mentalities. You have to trade off.
Well, they say that like repels like and opposites attract. So what about a couple, say a married couple, and they're totally different? How does that work, do you think? I mean, in your experience.
They complement each other, and they like it because he was very quiet and always wanted someone who would be more exuberant and charming and adorable. So she leads for him, and she wanted someone who was stable and trustworthy and was a good mechanic. And so he becomes that stable influence for her, and they like that about each other. Eventually, they get a little tired of it because he becomes boring and she becomes a nag to him.
Yeah. So to keep relationships going, and that I don't mean just men and women, but men, the same sex, is still a challenge.
It is. And
challenge. How do you work with that?
Well, I ask people to try to listen for why the other person is saying what he's saying. We call that reflective listening. Not just echo back what you heard. Yeah, Charlie, our meetings are always late because David's always late. We don't ask them to do that. We ask them to talk about what's going on with the statement. So he says, so I think you're upset, aren't you, Charlie, because you wanted to get going on time and it feels like you're always held up, isn't it? So we teach people to talk with reflective listening. And then we teach people to care about the other person, and when there's drama or conflict, I always like people to say, I'm sorry this is happening to us. Us. Not you, not me, us. We're in conflict. I'm sorry about that. That goes a long way.
Instead
just
of
that statement
blaming
goes a
the other.
long way.
Yeah. That it's the two of us, not just you.
Yeah. Happened to both of us.
Yeah. And that works successfully.
Sometimes.
What do you get out of counseling?
I have a sense that I save lives. I save a life by helping a person to understand his depression, or to understand how to work with the boss, or to understand how to work with his daughter, or how to work with her teacher. I help them to see what they can do better, or what they can do, why things have happened the way they've happened, or I help them to translate. And then that makes them healthier, and then they live longer. So I feel like I saved lives with that, and it's been a wonderful career. Wonderful.
But Jean, do you think people can really change?
Oh, of course I do.
Why do you
I
think?
couldn't be in this field if I didn't think people change. I see people change every day.
Really?
Of course. They have to change or they'll die. Or they'll be run out of jobs. Or they'll be run out of a marriage. So people change. Not easily. And it takes a lot of work to change.
But Jean, people can change their behavior, but they're not really changing what's going on inside.
Well, I think they are changing what goes on inside.
Do
They
you
have to.
really?
Oh, yeah. Or else, why would I want to?
I don't know. That's what I.
In the
That's
business of change.
no. That's what I'm asking, because I think we have our set personalities.
We do. We have a
and
core.
we all think we're right, and so unless you have a good therapist, obviously like you, it's acting as if that. I mean, if you continue to try to do something differently, you think that works?
Oh, I do. If you get enough feedback that what you're saying, what you're doing isn't working, eventually a person will change. If you really want, it's like an alcoholic or a drug addict or all of the addictions that we have. There are ways to say, that's enough and I'm now going to make a difference. Now, of course, if you're alcoholic or drug addicted, you may have to go to recovery. That doesn't mean you're going to just say you'll change, because I believe there are diseases, but we have all kinds of diseases of the mind and diseases of the heart. If you've been heartbroken, lost, or abandoned, it's going to be harder for you to change because you're
That's it.
clutching on.
That's it. When people have therapy with you, how long does it usually last? I mean, it's such a dumb question.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It depends on the person. You can go three times, and that's all they need. Or
Really?
one time, that's all they need.
Really?
Sometimes people need to go for 2 years or 5 years. Not every week or not every month. I'm not a psychoanalyst, but who believes in that.
Yeah.
But people come to as long as they need to. Right now, I'm lucky. I'm having the grandchildren or the children of old clients come to me, because now he wants my son to know what you're talking about, so they're sending their sons to me or daughters.
What I really enjoy about knowing you is that my father was a psychoanalyst, and we got all this therapy. We had to do therapy, and everything was just taken apart. But I see you as being you're part of what you really believe in, and you're always so happy. And that's unusual, because my dad wasn't that happy.
Well,
underneath.
he wasn't
really
trained to
wasn't.
be that happy.
Yeah.
Psychoanalysis in the earlier days, 50 years ago, there was a whole different.
Exactly.
It was a whole different game. It's different now. It's much different now. We're taught now to be more engaging. My motto is to be confrontive and comforting, both. So I won't confront you unless I feel that you have felt comforted by me. And if you feel comfortable enough with me, comforted enough, then I can say, you just did the worst thing I've ever heard of. Don't do that anymore. I can talk to you.
I see.
If I have your confidence and believe me and you believe that I want to help you. If you don't think I want to help you, then I better not say anything that's too harsh.
It takes tremendous trust.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your last book.
Okay.
Tell about this book.
Okay. Well, in Silicon Valley here, there were women who were vice presidents and they wanted to be CEOs. And they would come to me because they hadn't been promoted up. Or they were directors and they wanted to be vice presidents. And they never got the job. So we ended up with about 100 women. And we called them the 100 bully broads, because they all wanted to be more aggressive. And they'd seen their CEOs and their bosses be aggressive, and they didn't know why they couldn't bang on the table, and why they couldn't say, Charlie, you're out of here. Get out of here now. So we had to teach them, and they taught each other. We had groups that we met weekly, and they taught each other basically how to be more engaging, because what men want from a woman, again, is they want the comfort and the nurturing. They just feel a little strange when you act like, Charlie over there. So we taught women how to be more genteel about the way that they managed Now we still have in Silicon Valley, we still have had a half a dozen women CEOs. Period. Half a dozen.
That's
six.
all.
Six. We've never, we hardly have any women on the boards still. Not enough women on the boards. Maybe about 5% women on the boards. Now we have plenty of women who are superintendents of schools and librarians, and they have jobs wherein they're not being executives to 500 people or 5,000 people, or like HP, 25,000 people or 200. It's a huge number of employees by HP. And so with having a CEO who has to be in charge of all of those people, it's a hard job, very hard job. And women hadn't learned how to do that. Women weren't in sports enough. As you know, in sports you learn to be a team player, and you learn to respect what the coach says. You learn to take orders, and women in general haven't learned to do that.
I'm going to stop you.
Okay.
We're going to have another show. I can't wait to do another show with you. I want to thank you so very, very much.
It's fun.
Better than I even expected.
Oh, you're
You
good.
are fabulous. This is so important. My crew is just fantastic. Really, we're all volunteers, but my crew just seems to have all of this extra talent, and they're darling and
Aren't they
cooperative. So I want to thank them, and of course I want to thank our audience for watching, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye. Mwah, mwah.